Hi everybody, welcome to our fourth episode of the Spin That Shutdown Showdown. Today I'm going to talk to you about listening to records, record storage after you're done listening to it, the proper way to, the recommended way to store your records, and then we'll talk a little bit about record covers. So, you listen to your record, you're done with it, what do? Well, obviously you take it off the turntable. This is actually the Elton John record. So, the recommended thing is to put the record in a sleeve, obviously. And the way they recommend you store it is you take the record outside the cover and you put it in a plastic bag. And once it's in the plastic bag, you want to store it upright. You don't want to be piling up your records, making a pile of records. You just want to store it upright or on a shelf or something else. So, the reason being, with the plastic bag, it does two things. It protects the edges, so when you're sliding in and out the shelf, the record, and also it protects ring wear. So ring wear happens pretty naturally in the record collecting world. And here's a couple examples here. There's this here. As you can see, this record is more prominent on black record, but also you can see this. This is actually caused by the record being stored inside the cover. So that's why they don't recommend you storing that to prevent this from happening. Also, there's edge wear. That's also from sliding in and out collections and who knows what else. But anyway, this is kind of what happens when you have the record left in the cover, because the record inside of it makes an indentation, and that kind of causes, just from rubbing, will cause the ring wear and the shelf wear on there. So the recommended way to store your records to prevent that from getting worse, or if any goes in, just put the record in a plastic sleeve and the record outside the cover, and that's how you can protect your covers. So, segueing over to record covers, there's a lot of interesting part of collecting records, and record covers is kind of one of the secondary, or some people primary part of collecting records is the record cover, the artwork, and what's involved with it. This record is a little bit special because what happened when they took the picture, people didn't notice that this guy put his middle finger on the washboard. You can see it there. So what they had to do, they produced it, they put it out there, and then what they had to do, they later pressing, they airbrush his finger off of there so you don't see the offending finger. But this is kind of one example of a collectible record because of the cover. The record the finger had to be airbrushed and removed afterwards. So later pressings have no finger, and this one actually has a finger. This is the original pressing, actually in mono, but this is the original pressing on that. So yeah, that happens a few times. One of the most famous ones is obviously the Butcher cover from Beatles. They had them sitting down, all had baby parts and pieces of meat on them. That lasted not even one afternoon out there in the real world, and they covered them up, and then after that they didn't do it no more. So that's the most famous variation on covers. But also involved with records, there's a lot of famous artists who did record covers. A couple examples here. This is a really early cover done by Andy Warhol. It's before he became the famous Andy Warhol that everybody knows, the factory and everything else. But he worked doing record covers. It's one of the illustrators started off, any work they can get. So this is actually a cover done by Andy Warhol previous to his big fame. You kind of tell Andy Warhol's design because he has this what's called broken line here. Like when he did the outlines, it'd be like what's called broken line, and not all of them are. None of them are ever credited to him, so it's kind of research over the years. They found some. There's still some out there that maybe not been identified as him. Actually, had a friend of mine that actually found one and identified it and added to his catalog. But yeah, so that's an early Andy Warhol cover there. And I don't know if he did this on purpose or not, but you see it like this. But if you flip it over and actually cover it, you get like a second face. So that's pretty cool. I don't know if he did that on purpose or not, but that's also something pretty cool about this cover here. Also, famous people did covers. Here's one done by Salvador Dali. Salvador Dali is actually on the back with Jackie Gleason. But this is another cover that people collect that are, a famous artist did it. Salvador Dali did one of these covers. So there's a lot of famous people who did covers, arts, and things like that. What else was going on in the 60s, unfortunately, there were groups that their covers got changed. So here's a kind of a prime example of that. We have the Chantel's record. So this is the original Chantel's cover on this side here. That's the original Chantel's cover. And for some reason, the music industry, the recording artists association, or whoever it was, the promoters, thought this cover could not sell or did not sell many copies. And they figured maybe it's because of the girls on the covers. I don't know. This is what it eventually became. So this is what came afterwards. So they eliminated these beautiful ladies on the cover to replace it with this plain cover here. And because this happened really early in the production stage, this cover is really collectible. This actually, I show the prices. They usually sell about $200 this cover, just because of the cover, not because the music is exactly the same as this one, and this one you say it's just a $10 record. So this is kind of add collectability to the music, the covers, and the collectability of that too. So that's just one example. There's been other records like that where the people on the cover were removed and replaced with more different covers. Also, there's covers overseas that were never issued in the United States. This is an example here. Jimi Hendrix, Electric Ladyland. Fortunately, I had to sticker up the cover because this is all pretty much just naked ladies out there. But this cover is only released in the United Kingdom and overseas, Germany and all those areas. This is actually a German pressing. But United States, never would happen. So this is the version. This is the Electric Ladyland UK cover, but United States, we never got this. So this is kind of more collectible, less copies out there, and things like that. So that's an example of that. Also, during the 80s, there was a couple street artists who transitioned into what's called fine art nowadays. And this is kind of a couple examples of these artists. So here we have a Basquiat cover, and here we have a Keith Haring cover. Both of them were started off as graffiti artists, street artists, and they transitioned into what's called fine art. So these are really early covers of them when they were still, like during the 80s, when they were still going out there, painting up walls and subways and whatever else out there. So yeah, there's a couple examples of that. So yeah, that's a couple of examples of how records are great for music, but the covers are also very collectible, and some people just like the artwork. So that's the other part of collecting records. It's the joy of the music and art. So thank you for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one.